Also this week, Kremlin terrorists temporarily captured Velika Novosilka in the Donetsk region. It was indeed an important logistics center for Ukrainian defense and blocked the occupiers' route to the Ukrainian-controlled area, part of the Zaporizhzhia region. Indeed, now the Russians themselves have found themselves in a fire trap, report our defenders. The enemy is also having a tough time in the long-suffering and battered Bakhmut. All the details are in the exclusive report by TSN military correspondent Andriy Tsaprenko.
A few days ago, the Russians announced the capture of Velika Novosilka, an important settlement that could open a path for the occupiers to the Ukrainian-controlled part of the Zaporizhzhia region. The front in Velika Novosilka was held by units of the 110th Brigade, but the enemy's five-fold advantage made a difference.
By quantity?
By quantity.
Here, the factor of their very large numbers comes into play.
What do you think needs to be done on a global scale?
On a global scale, as they say, we need to keep fighting, keep destroying, keep serving, and we need to reconsider, as they say, the mobilization law.
Due to a lack of personnel, the interaction of units in Velika Novosilka had already become impossible. The weather helped us get out of the settlement.
They were coming out of the fog right in front of the enemy.
The Russians' path to Velika Novosilka is marked by war crimes. In the village of Neskushne near Novosilka, they filmed themselves personally killing 6 Ukrainian soldiers. The fate of the 7th is unknown, and this is not the only such case.
2 factors of confirmation. The first is when there were assault actions on the road in Blahodatne, they were restoring shooting, it was the Marines who were shooting. And in Neskushne they shot 6 people on video.
Probably the Russians deliberately posted the video footage of their crimes to intimidate the defenders of Velika Novosilka, but it had the opposite effect. The 110th Brigade assures that the Russians will no longer be able to continue their offensive here. The Mokry Yaly River, which was causing problems for Ukrainian logistics, has now become a barrier for Russian movement. The enemy has fallen into a fire trap where they are being dealt with by Ukrainian artillery. But it's possible that by capturing Velika Novosilka, the Russians will be able to redeploy units from here to the Kupiansk direction, where they are having success, or to Pokrovsk, the capture of which is a strategic task for the Kremlin. It's hot right along the entire front line, but there are areas where the enemy has halted their advance. Here, to the west of Bakhmut, we quickly respond to any movement.
The sky is clear, preparing for battle.
In this direction, the occupiers don't have enough weapons for an offensive. This section of the front is considered relatively calm. Thanks to the well-constructed Ukrainian defense, it doesn't allow the enemy to advance. Several factors are helping us here.
The terrain plays a significant role. And secondly, I think the enemy is not ready.
The unusual Croatian rocket systems Rak-12 used by the border guards of the Vengeance Brigade are targeting the fortified positions of the occupiers. As soon as they notice even the slightest movement there,
we have enough ammunition. In our direction, we currently have enough ammunition, while the enemy doesn't have sufficient forces for assaults. As soon as they appear somewhere, we suppress them.
Footage, not just ammunition, decides everything. The Mies Border Brigade carefully selects each fighter for the task they need to perform.
If he wants to work with the MLRS, then we assign him to the MLRS. If he's a computer specialist or a drone operator, we give him that opportunity.
Many people are fighting here whose homes are left in the occupied territory.
I really want to go back there.
The hope of getting back what's ours is probably the main motivating factor that drives people to do their best in combat tasks and not give up the territory.
Get off our land.
The new strike drone Lightning I is increasingly being launched by the Russians at Kharkiv. The Russians carried out a targeted massive attack on the historic center of Odessa. Well, of course, a separate chapter, a strike, on a multi-story building in Poltava. As a result of the attack, an entire entrance collapsed, with 14 people dead, including 3 children. TSN Week journalist Alina Lisova visited the site of the rescue operation, where they held out hope until the very end of finding survivors.
A column of black smoke, ruins all around, human screams and cries. So the Russians started the Saturday, the metro for Poltava.
It exploded so violently that I was completely unprepared. Morning. I went deaf from the windows. For Poltava. It's unbelievable, God. It's such a horror that you can't convey it. To experience all this, it's something that can't be expressed. He lived through it.
A missile that hit a residential building destroyed all 5 floors of one of the entrances. A mountain of crushed bricks and concrete, which used to be human apartments, was finished off by the fire. Lyudmila, who lives, or rather lived, in the same building, can't hold back her tears even though her entrance is still standing.
I realized right away because my windows faced that side. When I looked out, everything was black. Cars were burning. There was a column of smoke, fire. I was probably saved by the fact that my windows were open. I didn't close them.
By a miracle, Elena's family managed to survive. She was sleeping with her husband and daughters during the missile attack. She says it all happened very quickly.
It just crashed like that, and everything is smoking, everything is on fire, and there was still a car parked under the entrance. I peek out and say to my husband that there are no cars.
Only a wall separates Elena's apartment from the epicenter of the explosion. Her apartment is now without windows. It ripped out the frame, took the balcony away.
And here I know that there is no family. A little girl was running, little Sonia. There is no woman, no man, no child.
At the scene of the tragedy, nearly 500 rescuers and other services were working. The most important thing for them was to find those who survived under the rubble. And fortunately to dig out, they managed to rescue 22 people, 20 of whom are injured. The work didn't stop even at night, but on Sunday there were fewer good news.
Calm music.
On Sunday, around 5 in the evening, the emergency service reported that the rescue operations were finally completed. As a result of the Russian strike, 14 people were killed, including 2 children. Among the victims of the Russian attack was the entire Yavorsky family. A 37-year-old man, his wife, and their 9-year-old daughter.
There were also acquaintances living under the rubble. Well, people we knew. Well, what will they say? Tomorrow on Russian television, another NATO base has been destroyed. After all, these are just ordinary people.
According to the Ukrainian Air Force, a residential building in Poltava was attacked by the Russians with an X-22 missile. A similar one was launched by the Occupiers in June 2022 at the Amstor shopping center in Kremenchuk. It is known that this is an old Soviet supersonic missile that was developed to target large ships.
All the fragments extracted from the missile are safe and have been handed over to the investigative authorities for further investigative actions.
In addition to the completely destroyed entrance, more than 15 neighboring apartment buildings and a nearby kindergarten were also damaged.